former British MP George Galloway and Professor Danny Shaw, who's an expert in Latin America studies. Gentlemen, I can't help but think that all over the world people were looking at these pictures and either in dismay, thinking it could never happen here, or they were reminded of stuff they've seen in their own parts of the world. Danny, get us started.
Yeah, things that happen in their part of their world, often engineered by U.S. imperialism, which for decades and decades has freely intervened and invaded and occupied and bombed away on Southeast Asia and Central America and the Middle East. So people across South America and the Caribbean yesterday were asking, well, if those protesters looked like us, if they were African American, if they were Latino, would the police have treated them with kids' gloves? Would they have been so gentle? So white supremacy was on full display yesterday. Some of the flags that were out there in front of the Capitol and inside of the Capitol, the Confederate flag, the flag of Israel, the flag of Rhodesia was even cited, the flag of Iran from the era of the Shah when Iran was a neo-colony. So there were many international implications from what we witnessed yesterday.
That's a perspective most people hadn't seen. That's fascinating. Thank you, Danny. Let me bring in George. George, that's interesting. Danny gives us a perspective of what maybe, for lack of a better term, a term I've never liked, but people of color around the world, the way they may have interpreted this. How's it interpreted in Europe, for example, where most of the people descend from who were there yesterday?
Well, there was a fair bit of hypocrisy on view, even in your own broadcast, Rick. President Macron, for example, billing and cooing and clucking about what happened in Washington. For more than a year, Paris was a war zone when the yellow vests were being clubbed to the ground, gassed and shot, their arms and eyes being severed from them. So, and other governments, like the British government, that's had a 4-year love affair with Donald Trump, are now clucking at the ending of the administration. Then there's the hypocrisy point that Danny mentions. We recall almost identical events, for example, in Hong Kong, where Western countries were cheering on the rioters as they burst into the legislature and trashed it. Or in the Ukraine, more dramatically, where the parliament was burned to the ground and the president sent fleeing for his life in events that were coordinated by the United States and other Western governments, European Union governments. So they're all aghast that this has come home. These chickens have come home to roost in Washington. That said, Rick, this story really did make a big impact. You know, it's normal for the political class to be interested in what happens in Washington. But this went right down to the man and woman in the street. Practically the dogs in the street were talking today in Britain about what happened in D.C. last night.
Danny, I'm asking whether this story, this impact, this thing we saw, these pictures that you are all looking at right now, the storming of the U.S. Capitol by citizens of the United States, will this have a lasting effect, do you believe, on the way people view America?
Well, Joe Biden is truly the ruling class's preferred candidate because Joe Biden steadies the ship of capitalism and imperialism. Trump from day one has been, even if he's an economic insider, he's been a political outsider. His relationship vis-a-vis Pyongyang and other areas of the world have been highly unpredictable. We saw the full liberal assault on him, accusing him from the jump of being a stooge of Putin and all of this anti-Russia propaganda. So it's clear that the ruling class is very impatient. They want Biden to assume power as soon as possible. It remains to be seen if an impeachment of Trump in the next 13 days. But this is not what the United States wants to project on the world stage. They want to project pristine democracy and putting democracy in quotation marks, and the absolute hypocrisy of the Angela Merkels and the Macrons, countries that have stopped at nothing to recolonize Venezuela's, the Nicaraguas, the Cubas. For them to talk about democracy is extremely hypocritical.
Danny, my thanks to you, and my thanks to you, George, for the conversation. We certainly appreciate it. We have now learned as of